Welcome to the new episode of All That Jazz. I'm your host, Matyash, and I have with me Jeanna Mariee Aure. Welcome to the podcast. Or Aura, sorry. Jeanna Mariee Aure. Aura?
Yeah. Classic. Jeanna Mariee Aure is fine, my
Aura.
dear. However you want to say it is, you have an accent, so just say it how you like. It's all good.
Oh, wait, you're the first guest to say I have an accent. What kind of accent do I have?
Well, I'm assuming it's from your home country, so but I can hear that you have an accent.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but I would say I sound very different than most people here because it's a blend of American, maybe a bit British because I lived there for a while, but I resisted the British accent, so I think it's mostly the American influence. But anyway, let's talk about your work.
No, I'm happy to talk about you as
All right,
well.
cool. Yeah, I love to have therapy online on the podcast. That's also something. All right.
Yeah, I
Uh,
figured that.
So you're an intuitive, you're a healer, and you have other things to say about what's happening in the world as well. So let's start in the beginning. How did you get into the spiritual work? Were you like always aware of things around you and could see things that others couldn't?
Yeah, I think all of us are born that way. Actually, Matt, I believe all of us are actually born seeing, oh, seeing, and just the nature of life and of the veil and of being born. We are pretty much mind wiped of that, of our memories of what we can do. And I think often, especially children, as children,
Yeah.
we have a lot of memories, and then it slowly gets uh, I don't want to be harsh, and I'm not being harsh when I say this, but it gets conditioned out of us, really. So yeah, so I was like that, and I have just the same as every other child, really. So I had to find my way back to it when I remembered
Mm,
that it wasn't a bad thing; it was a good thing. Yeah.
right, right. I don't
Hmm.
recall seeing anything. Maybe I'm blocked out of my memory or something, but I don't recall anything at all of seeing. I don't, yeah, like any spirits or any auras or anything like that. Doesn't,
Well, yeah,
yeah.
we all have different strengths, though. We all have very different strengths, and I think for mine especially has been feeling, being very, very empathic. And so I was always able to um, see what people felt, and it was often what was coming out of their mouths was not matching what I was feeling from them. I could almost like hear another voice talking,
Mm,
saying their truth, and yet they were hiding the truth. So it was quite confusing as a child, and I think that's confusing for all children who are very empathic. And you strike me as someone who would be extremely empathic as well. um
um, yeah, I would say so. Um, there is that to a degree. I would say, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. We feel things intently, and as a child, we don't tend to have the filters to any of that. So, yeah, I found that quite confusing, and that's sort of really what I shut off as I got a bit older. Um, yeah, over time, because it was just
Yeah.
confusing.
It's
Yeah.
it's hard when there's harsh things said or there's family members that are really unkind and all that stuff because I think as empathic kids you kind of take that in more than your others or your siblings or whatever, and then you
Yes.
end up being more affected. Is that what happens mostly with empathic kids, is that if they come, especially if they're from a family that's really kind of dysfunctional? I think most families are to a degree, then it affects you more.
Yes, it does. And I came from that sort of a family as well. where it was yeah, it was very hard going, and it does affect you more. So my way of dealing with that as a child was I just would go into nature. I would be
Mm,
outside in nature with the animals, really, as my friends,
right.
was what it was like, because it was like a sanctuary. It was safe. And I think as children, we find coping mechanisms and adaptive ways of dealing with it. And so for me, that was just a way. Nature didn't lie. Nature wasn't angry. Nature wasn't, didn't make me frightened. And as sensitive, empathic children, we get frightened more easily. We pick up on things, and we have these fear things that are set off within us emotionally, like emotional fears.
Hmm.
So yeah, we tend to hold those things in. Yeah.
And how do you learn to really cope with that? Is it grounding, or is it like taking more time in nature? Because I remember sometimes when there would be arguments or whatever, I would just go for a walk, and and that would calm me down a little bit. But I think that's a
Mm-hmm.
normal thing. I think, don't most people do that? Just take a walk or go somewhere
Yeah.
else.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, if they have the ability to do that. I did do that, and I would suggest that to everybody, but I also withdrew into reading books. I would just
Mm,
go and lock myself away and read, children's stories and things like that, which was a bit of a fantasy land where everything was beautiful and gentle. you know
right, right.
but but I think the best thing that we can all do now, because I know that a lot of people, just with what's been happening over the last 18 months around the world, have had a
Yeah.
really, really hard time, because we've been given the space for things to come up within us that we've been quite probably pushing down and ignoring, or just not acknowledging. And
Mm-hmm.
so we've had this space, and everything just sort of comes up. It's a bit like an ocean, the sea, it just rises and rises and rises, and it has to go somewhere. So for all of us, I really believe that coming back to nature, going back and sitting with the trees, sitting against a tree, and they're just so, their energy is just so grounding, and it just takes, they will take it all from you. Because I went for a walk in the forest today, not for any reason other than I just thought it would be really nice.
Mm.
So I went for a walk in the national park, and I just came out feeling so peaceful and grounded and soft, and like there was nothing. I just wasn't carrying anything. I had no worries. Not that I was going in there very worrisome, but I came out still a different person. So I think if we can spend time, if possible, in the most natural environments that we can, and with animals especially as well, it goes a long way to reminding us of who we truly are on the inside.
How long would you say you would need to go into nature, like to really start to reap benefits? Is it just like, if you, even if you go for a minute, like there is a benefit there?
There's there are always benefits, no matter the time, always.
Mm,
Um, but if you're having a particularly, I mean, I guess it's like for some people, that are very much into their meditation, they might just be, some days they can't do their whole meditation that they would normally do, but they'll do, 5 minutes, or however they will do that. And, nature is a meditation in that way. So we can absolutely go and utilize it, and actually physically and verbally say, if you're not feeling um, you know, like you're being a bit silly or anything like that, but just you can offer the worries, the heart worries, all of those things that are concerning, and just say, I want to leave these with you, you
what if
know?
you live in London or some places you live, there's a dense population, and if you go to the park, does that count? Like, is a park part of, like, and there's a tree here and there, and it's kind of artificially made, but it's still nature, so that
It
counts for
is,
something.
it does. And trees are here for a purpose, and a lot of their purpose is to just be that guardian energy on that level, you know, not just, I mean, you just think about how a tree exists with their roots that go really deep into the earth, how deep they go down, so how grounded and how peaceful and strong they are. So they're made to take so much. So I find just going and sitting and leaning back against a tree and closing my eyes and not necessarily taking in anything else around me, but just being in that moment, feeling the tree against my back, feeling the bark against me, or, you know, wherever it's touching, but really be in that moment with it. So you can be anywhere. And if you can't do that, for instance, if you don't have access to those sorts of places, you know, we have technology to bring up the images. We've forgotten how powerful our imaginations are, how we can imagine anything. And our mind believes it. We only need to and the body believes it too. If we can actually visualize something and feel it, then the mind and the body believe it. So you can actually, you know, close your eyes and put some nature sounds on and actually imagine yourself sitting up against a tree and, you know, all of the feelings that elicits within you. So, yeah.
So that would be almost the same as being in nature, you're saying?
Well, it would, because even though you're not actually out in nature and on the earth, and there's nothing better than that, there's nothing better than that. There are ways and means that you can utilize all the gifts, you know, of technology that brings that into your own space. So, you know, have something that's visual that you can look at, have some sounds that you can listen to, and then really use the imagination, which really helps.
So you can be a lab technician in Wuhan and imagine your nature, and it'll be pretty much the same.
It's a great segue. Wow. Oh yeah, well, maybe, because, you know, and you think about these underground tunnels and things like that. Oh my gosh, what must that be like? Yeah.
Let's go there. Where are these tunnels? Where are these? All across the United States and Australia and places like that?
All across the world, pretty much, almost a lot. And there's even under ocean ones that cross through underneath the ocean. There's certain things as well.
But wouldn't that require a lot of work and like how do people then know about it? Are there reports of people that have been there and then they come back and they're like, yeah, these places exist?
There's definitely those people out there that talk about their experiences, and that's coming out more and more. Definitely coming out more and more. I mean, it's quite. We can all search for the deep underground tunnels, the DUMs, you know, and see the images of those, and actually see the technologies that they use to create those, and understand that they're building tunnels underneath water anyway, between countries and between cities and things like that too. So, you know, what's to say that technology hasn't been used in other ways? And I think the biggest thing is that we use our critical thinking and we need to think about what's possible, not what's impossible, because then it expands the mind much more. Yeah.
So I imagine these tunnels are there's nefarious reasons why these tunnels exist. There's something wrong going on.
Yes, well, there has been for a long time. I'm not going to go into this too much because, but I will talk a little bit about what I'm aware of. Yes, they have been used also for the military, so there has been good within that, obviously, in some ways. I'm sort of reluctant to talk about good and evil, but there have been very nefarious reasons. And if we want to talk about, you know, the tunnels underneath the White House, Washington, DC, and, you know, the way that those tunnels have been used, has been very very nefarious, very dark. And as I did a remote view of those, which is basically, you know, using my my inner seeing within a group. I actually did it within a group, but I could very clearly see some of the technologies, you know, the rail technologies that they'd used down there, like the magnetic train system, and could see what had happened down there, could feel the energy of the distress that had been in these places as well. So yeah, there's so much more than what people realize, that, you know, they haven't actually come to that awareness, but it's all coming up, and it is there now for people that are open and interested. They can look these things up, probably not on Google. Google's not great at allowing us.
Right. So there's a issue of censorship, and this channel on YouTube especially has been censored because well, we're gonna talk about it later, because
Yeah.
I have to cut it out anyway. Let's go to okay, you practiced yoga as well.
Yes.
And was that like hatha yoga, kundalini yoga, or any kind of different yoga?
It was a style of hatha yoga, based on, so the original style that it would have come from was hatha, but it was called Purna Yoga, was the style that I initially was trained in. I'd been involved in other styles of yoga before that, and you know, the traditional power yoga and vinyasa and flow, and I did have some experiences with kundalini yoga, but I sort of, once I went into once I started yoga teaching, you sort of decide, I'm free flowing. So I very much, everything's based on how I feel, and also who I'm connecting to with whatever it is I'm doing. So I had quite a varied style that it ended up being. But what I discovered most of all within that actually is that so many people used to come to me. My most popular classes that I had were the yin style yoga, which was the long, slow, deep, seated and lying down poses, because and shapes, because a lot of people, you know, we're living very fast-paced lives. So that became a bit of a signature, and I'd just take people through meditations as they were in these poses, and take them on little journeys. So they were always really popular classes. And then, you know, I did everything else as well.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
know, I did a bit of Kundalini yoga. That's the only yoga I did. And there was a teacher there, and she told me that she did a lot of like before Kundalini yoga, she did a lot of Hatha yoga. And then when she went
Mm-hmm.
surfing, she found herself like picking it up really easily. And the teacher was like, "Oh, you did surfing before?" And she's like, "No." But I think because she did a lot of yoga, that kind of helped her. Um, in, you know, stabilizing herself on the board a lot. Um,
Yes.
so I think yoga can be used. I think it's probably used in sports already. Like a lot of professional athletes use yoga to, if nothing else, to prevent injury, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, and not necessarily for the spiritual aspect of it, because, you know, it does come from it as a spirit. Its origins are a spiritual practice. Asana is a in itself a spiritual practice. So,
Mm-hmm.
um, but yeah, a lot of people use it for the benefits, and it just has so many benefits. I mean, for me, as I was going through my own journey of, you know, unfolding myself again, basically I like to call it with people, because, you know, we've been wrapped up like little presents, really, like gifts, all of the layers, and then, you know, we have to sort of unwrap those layers to remember who we truly are. And so yoga really, in all forms, it always felt like coming home. Whenever I was practicing, it was a coming home to who I truly was on the inside. So it really helps, I think, for all of us to just have that space and unwrap physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. You know, it's very, has all of that.
Would you say that yoga helps the flow of chi in the body?
Absolutely,
So
100%.
so then it would help with because I know there's some like kind of kung fu martial arts that use the inner energy. So I guess it would maybe help with that as well if you were a kung fu martial artist. That it would help you with with
I'm sure it would,
with the inner
because you
chi,
become yes. Well, you need to learn. You do. Well, I did qigong. For a little while. For a little while, I wasn't very patient with myself with qigong, but that was all about that moving. With working with qi, which yoga is the same thing. We just have all sorts of different words and names. Everything's been given a gazillion different names that it all means the same thing, which is your life force basically
yeah.
pouring through you. So yeah, absolutely. Yoga will help with those martial arts and yeah, all of those things. Surfing, any discipline, anything I think, that we want to learn, because in those skills within yoga itself, we learn so many different, as I said, the mentally, emotionally, spiritually, physically, all of those parts of ourselves are actually benefiting from the practice, which can be translated into life. And that's the whole point of yoga, is being able to translate the learning, transfer it into our life practice, basically, and whatever that is.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and then the ultimate goal obviously is to evolve spiritually. I think that's the let's say enlightenment would be the ultimate goal, but not many people obviously get enlightened, and it takes lifetimes. And one of the I think one of the important things is obviously love and the heart chakra and whatnot. So let's you have a thing whatnot. The love, right?
The love, we've got to feel the love.
Right, right. Where in some circles, if you mention love, it's too hippie. Like, why are you talking about this hippie stuff?
Yeah, no, I'm going to make it mainstream again.
Yeah, let's make love mainstream again.
Yeah.
All right, so heart activation is something that you do. So is that something that you developed, or was that already an established technique?
No, I just realized that I was doing that with people by by um, being myself.
Mm,
And I know I'm not unique in being able to do this, but I guess that's what I've called myself. That's what I do, because it's the only way I can think of explaining it. Um, is that because our energy, as we were talking about, our chi, our frequency, our life force, affects everything around us. So, it can be presence, it can be touch, it can be, the spoken word, it can be the thought. Everything has a coherence to it, has an intelligence to it, has an energy to it. So just being in someone's company or someone's space can be extremely healing and activating, as oppositely, it can be extremely triggering and and create all sorts of other things. So uh you know energy is everywhere, energy is everything, chi is in everything. So it moves through the it just the frequency is moves, it's what we're made of, it's what everything is made of. We just don't see those particles the way they move. We can't see them, it's so fast. So
right.
yeah, no one should ever take for granted and think for themselves that they're not doing anything for anyone else or affecting anyone else, because merely by breathing and being present or connecting or thinking about someone else or something actually has an energy that reaches across.
Yeah, that's scary to me. If let's say you are a public figure, and because then a lot of people would think about you, and not always in a good way. And so let's say if you were sensitive, that oh man, that would be like. But I guess a lot of people would think positive as well, maybe pray for you. So that would be in a way that's protection.
Mm-hmm.
Would you say?
Absolutely, I absolutely agree that. um, I also believe in like attracts like. So if your energy is and your frequency is high and elevated and quite pure, that's the majority of what you're going to bring in and call in. However, there are always, the ones or twos that might come along, and that's where we need to be very, very strong and clear on boundaries, which has been an interesting word for me, because unconditional love, pure love, is boundless, it's limitless, it's free, it's pure. So there's no limits. However, we need to be in our sovereign selves, be able to put to it, when we realize something like that is happening, or we don't wish for that to happen to us, we need to actually have that awareness and put some awareness in there and set that parameter and expectation around ourselves. And then even if it does happen, having the strategy to know that it says a lot more about the other person than what, or the situation, than what it says about you. And the cure for that always is recognizing it, seeing it, and saying, okay, so maybe I need to be a bit more what's the word, discerning, which is a very powerful word in today's world right now anyway. But be a bit more discerning about how I share my energy and who I share my energy with, and then release that. Always release it with love. Thank you for showing that to me. Thank you for giving me that gift of awareness, and letting it go with love and not dwelling. The biggest thing is to not dwell, but we must acknowledge these things. Really important.
Like, thank you for showing me what not to do.
Exactly. Yeah, it's great. Thank you for reflecting that to me. I'm really pleased. Yeah, I love you. Off you go.
Is that it? Like, is that a lot of people that we dislike in some way, is our own inner issues that we haven't dealt with, would you say?
Often there is a mirror aspect to that trigger and mirror, and really it can be the tiniest little thing that can bring something into your life. Absolutely. And it's really it's that ability to recognize that, and it's not always easy at the beginning, because it feels like a really personal attack. But it's actually, I don't think it ever stops. I mean, this is my opinion. What we actually learn is that we become less triggered. I think the triggers, as we're moving through the energies at the moment, depending on where we are on our journeys, if we're quite far down that journey, yes, it might happen. Someone might reflect something to us, and it's more like how quickly do we become aware of what that actually was and work with that energy that it's brought up with us. And it becomes quicker and more fast over the time. Otherwise, if we just keep pushing it down, then it's going to find a way to be louder and bigger and more expressive and more in your face. So that person might come back bigger, louder, more expressive, and more in your face, or more of that energy comes, because it has to be brought to the surface. The light has to be put on it by yourself. We have to put the light on it.
So we need to embrace and put it out in the open, the negative feelings, and look at them and try not to resist them, so they go away.
You know what you're talking about.
I try to do that, but sometimes I just can't help myself to dislike some people.
And do you know what? That's natural, because energy is sometimes, we come across energies and it's like, whoa, there's something there's something in that energy, but I'm just like, I don't want to have a bar of that. I don't want to have anything to do with it. Or you've been hurt really, really badly by someone emotionally, and it's like, oh, I don't know if I can ever forgive that. But forgiveness is the key at the end of the day. Forgiveness is always the key, but we need to forgive ourselves first, because when we forgive ourselves by letting that because we're always like, well, how did that happen? Why did that happen? And we look at ourselves and blame, and then the blame game.
So when Oh, the blame game is something that's really interesting. There's a book called the Blame Game by Eric Berne. It's really interesting. One of the game because it's really funny when he describes the games. And one of the games is, "I'm just trying to help you. I'm just, I'm just trying to help you."
Yeah, and that's a common, I mean, there's labels and things for people that do those and say those sorts of things, and you know, labels are labels, but exactly, to make it seem like it's, yeah, I'm just trying to help you, which then creates that doubt and that questioning and things within yourself. And whereas we always need to come back into ourselves, you know, our body gives us so many cues. When we sit and listen to our body will tell us what is our truth, what is true and what is not true, because there's a resonance that our bodies and our minds and our souls actually recognize of truth. And so what is true for me, how does that feel in my body, without involving the mind at that point, you know, but how does it feel within me?
Are
You
you
know,
talking
there's a
about like decisions? Like how does that feel if I'm picturing that I'm going to this university or that university or gonna do this project? How does that feel in me? And then judge based on that.
it's everything. You can go through your whole life listening to your body's intelligence on everything, because your body doesn't lie. Once you get through that, um, once you get through the mind chatter and actually have that ability to just sit and be with your body and ask a question and learn to understand how it actually answers you, then it does, it will tell you anything. It will
Hmm.
tell you anything. Yeah.
Sometimes I'm not clear what is what like sometimes I pray for guidance and then I write a few things down and I'm like, okay, interesting. I'm like,
You're not trusting yourself.
well, so yeah, sometimes especially when there's a how do I put this? When there's a high stake decision, like what, or when I'm in the fork in the road, I'm like, which decision do I take? Which path do I take, and all that. That's some I've found that so far to be extremely difficult to decide which way to go and which way
Yeah.
to abandon, because that's also
Yeah.
an important way. Like you can't do everything, right?
Yeah. I think, yeah, in a way, in itself, not making a decision is making a decision, if you know what I mean, as
Yeah.
well. However, I believe on the spiritual level that there is no wrong decision. So, you know, we just sometimes have to go down a path, maybe choose a path, you know, choose a path, because if we get our head too involved in it and we go over and over, it's really great to have critical thinking and do that. But it's like at the end of the day, everything should feel a certain way within us. Does it make me feel excited? Do I feel excited on the inside when I feel about that? Or am I just doing something because I feel like I have to? And therefore there's a
Yeah.
totally different energy within that. And excitement is such a big thing for all of us. If we feel it and it gives us a, you know, that sense of excitement, it's like, yeah, that's what we go for.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, like pursuing our joy. So
100%.
what's when you work with the heart, do you like be tender and but you like, come on, open up. Like how do you what's the or do you prescribe like meditations to them, or like say you need to forgive your father, your mother, or whatever it is, or is it all of the above?
I think at some point it becomes all of the above, but we always start with somewhere. And often when we're working with our hearts and healing our hearts, we're triggered by something. So something triggers that. And so we actually have to go to that point and then work backwards from that point. Really, if we want to go into the true healing, work backwards from that point and see if we can find where the origin of that was and do the healing back there. You know, and most of our, I'm sure you know this, but most of the healing, you know, it's the inner child, it's the wounded child. And and then that can be carried through from ancestral energy and all sorts of things, but we can only work with ourselves and how that energy has affected us. And it can seem like it's something very minor, but as a child, whatever it was, it felt pretty huge, because you're a child, and your sense of safety was taken away in that, in those moments. So it's about actually going back to that inner child and making them feel safe as the adult you are,
Right.
working with that inner child and holding them. So it's all of everything that you said.
It can seem minor, but then the client is on the table crying, and you're like, okay, calm down.
Yeah, well, I'm not. See, I love tears because I don't mind. I have been called the rainmaker.
Oh man,
So,
okay. I figured.
but
Let it
but
rain.
I've never tried to make anyone, like, I don't see it as like it's a must thing for people to have tears, but I always see tears as such a beautiful release anyway for the body and for the the emotional self as well. It's so important, and I think they've been so underrated. And I think especially if you've been a sensitive child, and I know this happened to me because I was so sensitive. I got told off for crying. I got there was made to feel like it was a real weakness when I was so sensitive that something hurt me and I cried. And I think that's happened to a lot of really
Yeah,
highly sensitive
probably.
beings, where we need to learn to be able to, without fear, feel safe to express our emotions.
Right. So yeah, if you're not expressive in the family, if the family discourages being expressive, that's obviously a hindrance, and then you're more inhibited as you grow up, because that's how you've been, uh, for lack of a better word, trained in your family, like trained it out of you to be expressive. So then
Yeah.
they come to you, and then they start crying, and then like, oh, I shouldn't cry. And then you're like, it's okay. You're safe, right?
Yes. All of those things, I've got you. But it is true, and it can be sometimes, especially I think in this past 18 months, because it's been such as a human experience, sort of out of the ordinary for so many people, the triggers have become at times really quite minor. Whatever's triggered us can be quite minor, but because we've had that extra space to be with it, it makes it feel really huge, which is actually a good thing, because then we actually seek to
Mm,
go deeper and allow that to come up. So that's the gift in it, because everything that is dark, needs to come to light for healing. And so that's a real service in itself.
right.
Um,
There's a book that, I'm gonna mention Donald Trump already. He wrote a book called, something like generic, like How to Become Rich, you know. But in the
yeah.
book, I was surprised that there was a chapter called, Read Carl Jung, and
Ah,
he said there's a story that, that Donald knew somebody that was always so calm, no matter what was happening. And he asked the guy, how are you able to be so calm? And the guy's like, well, I grew up in a very dysfunctional family, and then I started reading Carl Jung, and I think he got therapy as well. And then he said he realized that other people are like, I like guns, but I can be the trigger. So I learned not to be the trigger, you know. And Donald was like, "Oh, this is interesting." And then he started reading Carl Jung, and he said it helped him in business and in, personal life. Obviously, because I think Carl Jung was such a genius ahead of his time. That,
absolutely.
yeah. Oh, so you've read Carl Jung as well.
Well, I think I did a year of sociology at university as part of my degree. So yeah, I did do a bit of study back then. Um,
What kind of
yeah,
degree did
on
you
the
do?
topic. I did a degree in education, with a minor in English, and yeah, in English as well, because I was very much into, um, yeah, just yeah, I love languages um, and English and just everything really. I love languages. I'm very much into language, so
Mm,
that was my passion, and the education part was what I had to do. for what I was, was wanted to do in my life at that time.
So now I'm gonna go a bit political because I think it's
Yeah, it's good. It's good. I'm into it.
university, because I'm back in university, and unfortunately there is a lot of political stuff infused in it.
Yes.
For example, we had to read a book called "Why I'm No Longer Talking to White People About Race," and I read the book, and it's pretty horrendous. At some point, she says that all white people are racist, even if they don't think they are. It's like,
Oh
and
my gosh.
it's terrible. And the thing is that you were talking about triggers before, but I think some of the basically they in the mainstream, not just in university, but in the mainstream, like left thinking, they're making people be triggered quickly, so
Yes.
the trigger threshold is lowered. So like small things, there's microaggression, there's this and that. But does that mean that in a way that would help them, like if they get triggered so much that it would bring up stuff and then maybe induce them to go to therapy or something, or people like you, a healer?
Yeah, well, it obviously does if it affects them. Like we are drawn to either pleasure or pain, aren't we? Two things change us, pleasure and pain. We,
Mm.
seek pleasure or there's pain. And one, we move away from pain towards pleasure always. So if the trigger is big enough and it affects us enough, absolutely, it really does assist and help. I can't believe that you had that book at university. I have to say, I have to talk about that. As an
No, this
ex-teacher,
this is mainstream now. This is mainstream.
I
This is
know,
critical
as a
theory.
teacher,
Yeah.
yeah, as an ex-teacher, I taught right through up to secondary school and as well for a little while. And I left teaching because the box was just getting too small, way too small for the children and for myself as well. But it's and having gone through university as well and having a degree and then doing another teaching degree on top of that, it's so interesting, the indoctrination, that's the mind controlling that starts within that, and rewriting history, creating a history that is not true.
Hmm.
And because we're so indoctrinated and mind we've been taught to listen to the teachers or listen to the school, listen to education's the best thing, and university's the best thing. And we were taught that, though, that, and it's, so you take that, it's like going to the doctor and the doctor's has all the answers for everything, rather than you learning to listen to your own body. And knowing that your body innately has its own healing within it. So the same with the education system. What's wrong with not, with being outside and exploring in nature and learning from nature? Nature will tell you everything that you need, tell you
Well,
everything.
but if people want to learn math or learn these skills, obviously they need to be inside. But the thing I'm worried about really is, again, the indoctrination, all the fluff that you get on the side. They and don't forget, these people are like, they're a lot of my classmates are like 18, 19. So, and they come in already pre-programmed from their primary schools, their high schools. They already
Exactly.
come in with that ideology. Yeah, this is I should feel guilty because I'm white and all that. This it's it's so prevalent nowadays. So I'm gonna ask you a question I don't like to ask, but do you think
No, I like that you are. Yeah, it's good.
do you think the world, or at least the Western civilization, is on decline?
I think I think what's on the decline is actually the awareness and critical thinking, the use of critical thinking skills, and actually being able to use your own brain and being encouraged to use your own brain. I think the indoctrination of the past and education and everything we've just handed over ourselves, or been parents handed over their children to the school to teach them everything they needed to know, because that's what they trusted. And it's actually declined our use of our own brains, our own awareness, our own, all of our whole selves. So yes, I would agree that there has been that, but I also would say right now, you know, we're amidst of a huge change in the world.
Mm.
You know, as they coined the awakening, the great awakening, or however you want to talk about it. So, you know, and that is about coming back into that awareness, you know, using our own intuition, our own knowledge, and ancestral knowledge, and the knowledge of um, the indigenous knowledge, everything, because everything is one. It doesn't come down to this is right and this is wrong. We've all lived in so many different ways that it's all right in so many ways. And we can't be told that you should be feeling guilty because of the color of your skin and that you
Right.
believe a certain way. No one should be, because that's again creating that separation, which has been the whole point of what they're doing, separation of us
That's
all.
it. It's a derivative of postmodernism and Marxism, which always
Yes,
depicts
yes,
victim versus perpetrator. So
yes,
if you are white, you're the perpetrator, and the minorities are the victims. It's so simple. And except the Jews. The Jews are never the, even though they're the minority. There's exceptions, I guess. um, yeah, it's silly. It's really but it's taken over everything,
it's
and
dangerous.
it's dangerous, and but it's gonna take a while before we deprogram from it. And so how would you say that people can develop their critical thinking skills? I think a lot of people are just part of the herd and don't want to be stand out or stuff like that. But I think it's important to if something's not right. Like I've complained with my university several times about biased courses, things that are not balanced, etc., etc. But majority just goes along with it. Seems completely normal, and I don't know. Sometimes I'm losing
Mm,
hope a little bit for the Western civilization. I'm like, where are we going?
I understand that, and
Mm.
I guess you know within that it's you that has the choice, because I'm always a believer in humanity. I'm a believer in the innate goodness and growth of humanity, and we are evolving. However, I think some of us are, you know,
Are we?
the yeah, we are. But the rates of evolution are very different depending on, you know, the way the mind is being controlled. And I think that what's happening at the moment is there are some people that unfortunately are not going to actually, you know, have that awareness. They're just not, because for various reasons, quite obviously. But I think, you know, we're in such powerful times for so many others that there are so many more that are aware of what it is and that are, you know, able to plant seeds. And if you work with the energies that are all around us, like with nature and things like that, um, I think some people are just becoming aware really, really quickly that there's something happens and they just go, shit, you know, what's going on? What is, you know, and then the questions start. And I think one of the biggest things for me when I really started to get into it is I turned off the television completely. I stepped all out of all of that. I still had the internet and I still did those things, but I didn't do anything. I didn't look at anything that could influence my mind. I allowed myself to listen. And then once I really got in touch with what was going on with my heart, I could feel what the truth was.
Mm.
And I think, you know, I think that's what's helped awakening with so many other people at this time is, you know, they have had that time alone. But then there are those that just sit in front of the television and digest everything that's put there,
Yeah, I mean, I've
you know.
had a guest saying, "Oh, just on this show, just saying basically, oh, just read different newspapers, just read New York Times, just read Wall Street Journal, like different newspapers, Al Jazeera." But I would say a lot of those are really bad. There's either truth or falsehood. Like
That's right.
if you read mixed truth and falsehood, and if you read some falsehood, is you're just gonna get confused because like you're reading a one true story and one false story. It's like what?
It is, and it does. It actually makes people more and more confused, and that adds to the confusion. So they continue to look externally for the answers or for someone else to give them the answer, not realizing that if they just stepped away from all of that for a period of time, and it doesn't sometimes even have to be that long, you know, and actually just plugged into themselves
Right.
and you know and learned to listen, like I said to you at the earlier on, is that our body has the answers as well. You know, there's everything's within us. So if we learn to listen to the cues of our body, how our body, I always talk about, I get truth bumps. I really do get truth bumps, which other people call goosebumps or whatever, but I get different types of truth bumps within my body, with different truths, you know, certain energies of certain people, and then certain things that I'm learning, and I just feel it in my body. My body tells me very, very clearly in many ways, and I know a lot of other people are the same.
Okay, I'll propose to you this because I've been very confused about this. I've known psychics and I know psychics and people that are very intuitive, and they say
Yeah.
they looked at Trump and they're like, oh, this is a person that's bad. This is a person that's devoid of soul, or what, kind of things of that nature. And I'm thinking, how is it possible that two different set of psychics get two completely opposites readings on a person? And I'm like, there's something else going on. How is that possible? Are they reading an image, a projection, a political bias version of the person energetically somehow? Like, what is happening?
Well, again, it depends, and I'll talk about my experience with President Trump in a moment as well, but to sort of give you an example. But depending on how clear your own, you can be a psychic or a healer or anything like that. But again, if your energy is still not, things come in to all of us. Things come in. Dark is attracted to the light. Obviously, the dark's attracted to the light, and often the lighter you are, the more the darkness is attracted to that. The more sensitive you are, you know. And so that's where those, you know, having those parameters and those boundaries is so important
And
in your.
sage as well. Sage
Yeah,
as well.
I was burning sage. I had my sage sitting there as burning as we started, just to set the energy for the
Yeah, yeah.
space, because you know it's very important from my perspective that I'm connecting with you here, and then we're connecting with people beyond this space. And so I believe that, you know, we want to offer the highest frequency as possible within that
Hmm. I
energy.
usually
So
burn sage
people,
as well.
yeah, it's so good. Oh, and it smells so yummy, and it's, you know,
Yeah.
it's just everything about it's so good. I can't recommend it enough for people.
Okay. Um, let's do a little bit inner child stuff. So, is that because I've never actually formally done something like that, but is it about, obviously it's about looking at the inner child, and there's different ways to do it. You could
Well,
probably
I
like,
can take you through
okay,
one. I can take you through a little scenario for yourself. You
sure.
don't have to talk about it unless you want to, but I can get you to visualize, and you just need to be really open to it.
Okay.
So are you okay to close your eyes?
Yes.
Okay, so close your eyes, make yourself comfortable in your seat,
Mm-hmm.
and just notice where notice where your feet are. And I just want you to send your breath all the way down into the soles of your feet. So I want you to breathe down into your toes. And then as you exhale, I want you to draw the breath up all the way to the crown of your head. And on your next exhalation, the breath that's coming through your toes, send it all the way down into the earth. All the way down. And let that anchor there. But as you take a fresh inhalation, allow that breath to be fresh, that comes all the way up to the crown of your head. It opens your heart front and back expands, and the breath comes out through the crown of your head. And your next exhalation. So we're going to stay with that, inhaling the breath up and out through the crown, fresh breath, inhaling and out through the toes into the earth. And drawing back up from the earth. Expand the heart, really expand the heart. And exhale the breath out through the crown. And inhale from out there amongst the stars and draw that breath in. Draw the stars into your breath. Expand your heart. And exhale out through your toes. Beautiful. Now I just want you to come and rest in your heart. No need to control the breath anymore. You're anchored in the earth. Your crown is nice and your energy is nice and clear. You're open. And just I want you to just focus on your heart. Don't need to breathe into it. You don't need to do anything. I just want you to take your awareness into the heart. Be aware of the heart. And then think of the last time or most recently, what's the thing on your mind most at the moment that's triggered you?
Mm-hmm.
And I want you to think of what that emotion is. And I want yourself to actually allow yourself to feel that emotion that comes with that. Allow yourself to feel it. Notice where you feel it in your body. Where in your body. And just sit with that part of your body for a moment and let yourself feel it there. Beautiful. And knowing that you are in a really safe space right now. You are wrapped in light. So I want you to let your mind and your awareness travel back as far as you can go back to either childhood or teenage years, to when you can really remember feeling that feeling most deeply. Just nod softly when you've got something. Okay. So I want you to, just where you're sitting now, you're safe. You're in there, your feet are rooted into the earth, your crown is reaching towards the sky. So safe, your heart's right in the center, held right now. And I want you to call forth from where you are sitting now in your mind's eye. I want you to imagine that the boy that is you, that had that feeling, that emotion, that situation, allow him to come towards you now. Just where you are sitting, as you let him come towards you. And I want you to just look into his eyes. He's not going to speak. I just want you to look into his eyes and then allow him to speak to you and tell you how he felt in his words when that happened to him. Let him speak. Listen to him. Just look at him with love, compassion. Let him say everything he wants to say about how he feels. And when he's done, just give me a nod, but let him go as long as he needs to. Okay. I want you to put out your two hands to him and invite him to take your two hands, one hand in each. And I want you to look at him in the eyes. He's just going to listen to you now. And I want you to tell him, just in the mind, through the mind to him, just want you to tell him how sorry you are and how sad you are that that happened to him. And that you understand how that made him feel. You understand why he felt the way he did. And I want you to say to him, but I'm here now. I'm here and you're safe. Because what happened to you was not fear. You did not deserve that. You're a child. And I'm sorry that happened, but I'm not going to let that happen to you again because I'm here now. So you can trust me to take care of you so that doesn't happen again. Because I love you and I'm always here for you. I just want you to just watch his face as it relaxes. As he starts to relax, you can see he might have a few tears, but he's more relaxed. And then you say to him, is there anything else he wants to say? And you're still holding his hands. And you're still looking at each other. And you just have so much love for him. You can just feel that love welling up in your heart for him. And he can feel it. When you are ready and when he is ready, just gently invite him to come towards you in a hug, in an embrace. And let him know, keep saying, I've got you now. I've got you, you're safe, you're with me, and I love you, and I'm not going to let that happen to you ever again. And as you're hugging him, as you're embracing one another, you can just feel him melting into you. He's melting, dissolving into you, into your heart, so that he becomes nestled safely in your heart. He's trusting, he's let go, because he knows that he's always with you and that you love him so much. He's safe. Just be in that moment for a while and enjoy that feeling of having him inside your heart. Feel him. When you're ready, knowing that he's inside your heart safe, I just want you to give thanks to yourself. Just silently thank yourself and thank him. And just start to feel the earth beneath your feet again. The energy moving through your body as you become aware of your breath, just awareness of the breath moving back through the body. Feeling the toes and the fingers, and maybe just bringing a little bit of movement in your mind, saying, I am here, so that you come back into your body fully. And when you are ready, just look really softly, open your eyes. Yeah, just be soft and gentle.
All right, I'm back. Wow, I went on a bit of a journey. Yeah, I feel
Do you
good.
want to say any? Do you want to say anything about it or not?
It felt, yeah, it felt. I went in when I was like 4 or something, where something happened. Yeah, and yeah, I felt. Um, it felt good. It felt like I was recalling a old friend, or somebody old, like somebody I haven't seen in a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, my heart. It's so beautiful. It's so beautiful. And I mean, look, that was the short version. I go
Sure.
much deeper, and
And
I
people
actually
can do
bring
it as
in,
well.
yeah, I bring in situations, and I bring in, so you're actually observing the situation and all sorts of things, like, because that was a very short
Right.
version of
And
condensed.
I imagine people, when you do it with people, you ask them what they're experiencing as well. I'm glad we didn't do
I
that
do.
in here.
Yeah, no, I didn't do that. No, out of respect for privacy, I
Yeah.
was not going to do that. And I do that, and there are a number of different methods that I use depending on how I'm feeling, the energy moving through with what you're doing. But
So you're able to
yeah,
feel whenever your client is what they're doing.
I'm able to sense it. Like, I knew there was a really beautiful moment in there with you. It was towards the end, and there were two things that happened actually at different points, and I wish because I was so in it with you, I didn't take note of which points they were, but there was a point about 3/4 of the way through where the light above you actually flickered, at a moment where I said something. I can't remember what I said to you, and I felt you sort of go into, and the light above you flickered. It was really
Oh wow.
like, wow. And then there was another point just towards the end there where I felt it all settle in. I felt him come into your body. Like, I felt him, I got heat running through my body at that time as you brought him in. Like, I could feel him coming into your heart, and the warmth in your heart with him in there. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, which
That's
was really
cool.
good.
So people can do it at home as well, that 5 or 10 minutes or whatever it was.
Yeah, they can. They can. Absolutely. Just knowing that it is a very short version, and it's very you know, yeah. Yeah.
Cool.
But it's still, it is as easy as that, really. But again, everyone's different, so everyone's different, and they have different needs, and depends. If I was with someone one-on-one, it would be who's sitting in front of me and what do I feel that the energy. And
Obviously.
obviously we're working with time and
Yeah.
privacy and all those things as well. Yeah.
Um, so do you also work with people's like past lives and stuff? Do you sometimes bring that up as well when you're working with them and you're like, oh, this is because if your past life in Romania or whatever it is.
More so, I work on timelines. So I'll pick up if there's a timeline that needs to be closed off or healed, and it can be like a past life timeline that's bleeding through on something like that. And I'm not so, can't say I'm so great at picking up like exactly where it is, but I can pick up, I can pick up a fair bit in the fact of knowing that it's definitely not this lifetime, that it's a past lifetime, and I can, quite often pick up the masculine, feminine energy and things like that as well. So, but people always give clues. There's the thing, I think people need to trust themselves, in these instances as well, with what they get. We're so quick to, discount things that we intuitively sort of give us a hit in the heart, or we have a bit of a aha moment, or something triggers that, and it's sort of like, oh no, don't worry about that, that's just, we do that so quickly. But once we realize, the more we actually stop and acknowledge that and listen to it and just take it as it is, without judgment if possible, then the more we get given, the more comes through for ourselves, because I'm all about empowering people to be their own healers. I work with people one-on-one. They come to me and I might only have 1 or 2 sessions with people, and then I just like, I don't really need to see them unless something big happens. But I'm about empowering people to realize and understand that we are our own gurus, we are our own healers, that we've just been trained to give our power away to others. But I know that as healers and teachers at the moment, we're very, very needed at this time, because so many people are going through things as we move through these dense energies on the planet, with everyone, with everything that's going on. That's just a reflection of what's going on within each one of us,
Yeah.
really.
Do you think what's happening, even though do you think the energy overall of mankind is lowering in a way because of the decline of Western civilization?
No,
No,
um,
they're staying the same.
because well, I can't put it into one box, because I feel it energetically. If I look at it from a spiritual perspective, there's more energy than ever on this planet now, and the
Oh,
frequencies and the energies are higher than they ever were. But if we're looking at, sometimes I think, more like brain and coherence and heart coherence within certain groups, and that sort of thing, then I think that there's been a really distinct lack of that within the westernized culture,
right.
which
Maybe I think I have a theory about that. While the West falters, the rest of the world has picked up the slack and start to maybe close the gap as the West is kind of floundering with its own, especially with like I said, with critical theory and all this stuff that's infused in young people. They held back in the West, but elsewhere they're not as held back. So they're more prospering faster, right? I
they
think.
are more openly. I think there's a more of an openness, because it has come down all to that mind control, and no
Yeah.
matter what you believe in, that we've been mind controlled in Western society from the moment that we're born. And before us, it was our parents, back in the 1950s, after World War II, and then the mind control really came in hugely. They carried that through. And so Western civilization, Western society has been absolutely controlled with that, on a very subtle but ongoing way, so that it's so sneaky and under the surface that
Mm.
most people just don't realize.
Well, since we're bringing this up, well, I'll cut this from YouTube, but let's talk about